And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for jumping on another ATS University. My name's Zach Allison. I'm the ATS National Accounts Manager, working with engineers, architects, interior designers, even design build contractors all across the US and Canada, focused on trying to assist them in keeping masters updated, assisting with education on any of the various products that are on our system. And if this is your first ATS University, thank you for attending. We've been running this, I want to say nearly weekly, almost in between weekly and bi-weekly, fortnightly maybe, for the last few years, providing education and product training on the manufacturers that sponsor the ATS Spec system. I would imagine if it's your first time, you're probably unfamiliar with the ATS Spec tool as well. This is a product selection tool that allows you to actually configure your product so you get accurate model number, accurate description of what you're specifying, and 10 different formats that are all free and easy to access, so that you can take the information from the online platform and put it into your specs, whether that be for a particular project or for your internal masters. We try to keep things up to date as much as possible. So if there's a discontinuance, your master's always protected. There was actually a big point that just came up with one of the engineering firms I was working on yesterday. It was great. We were actually able to help them identify a previous change notice issue and update their masters so it's not going to be a problem going forward. So that's what ATS is really kind of designed for, not just helping you write your specifications on a project by project basis, helping you keep your master specs updated, and more importantly, making sure that you are actually understanding what is being specified. And that's why we run our ATS University sessions. This session is a accredited session, so we will be taking the list, sending it over to our manufacturers team. They will log the ASPE accreditation. And if you are simply needing just a certificate of attendance, we send out certificates of attendance on the Fridays for every one of our sessions. So some states, some provinces, you don't necessarily need the accredited version for your hours, in which case our certificate of attendance works great for your professional development credits. If you're doing the full ASPE accreditation, that's where the partnership with their manufacturers comes in. I will be largely muted upon most of the presentation here. I'm going to pass it over to our partner shortly. But I will be keeping an eye on the chat and question field. If there is any questions along the way, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A tab. I'll be sure to raise them up to Ranveer as we go. But today we're going to be kind of deep diving, as it says on the screen, Commercial Plumbing 101. We're going to be going over lots of different brass for the most part. And we're happy to have one of our new partners for the US market, as well as partnering with some of our white label features, which will show you how you can find all the products at the end of the session and find them on the spec tools. So without any further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Ranveer. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah, so my name is Ranveer Dillon. I am working with Zach on this Commercial Plumbing 101 course. And I am the Business Development Manager for Delta Commercial, and I'm happy to share some of my knowledge here with the team. So with that, we'll get started. So this continuing education course is going to provide you with an overview of commercial plumbing systems and explain how fixture and faucets function, operation, performance, and placement affect water delivery to the various areas in the building. We'll be speaking about common items used in commercial plumbing and have very little conversation about specialty items. So there are 4 learning objectives to this course. In the first part of the course, we're going to define what we mean by commercial buildings. And then objectives 2 and 3 are covered in the plumbing section, which includes an overview of a common room layout, how different types of faucets and fixtures work together, and how they all come together to meet project goals. And at the end of the course, we're going to be reviewing plumbing industry codes and standards related to plumbing in commercial construction. So let's begin with a look at types of commercial buildings. So there are many types of different commercial buildings, including hospitality, public facilities, offices, healthcare, education, and multifamily. And within those, there are numerous subsegments, some of which have similarities with others, and others that are quite unique, especially when we think about plumbing, such as hospitals. And depending on the type of project being specified, you need to keep the unique aspects of the segment in mind and look for solutions both for the owners and the users. So what you see on the screen there, from hospitality to multifamily, you can see that there's quite a large array of building types that encompass the commercial side of things. So as an engineer, you have two customers in a commercial scenario, the owner of the building and the ultimate end user of the spaces you design. Both of their needs should be taken into consideration when specifying plumbing products. A trip to a restaurant or coffee house can quickly be ruined by visiting a poorly maintained washroom. There's little point in spending resources creating a wonderful front of house experience only for customers to have a terrible experience when they go to the restroom. The vast majority of people say they would avoid a business in the future if they encountered a dirty or poorly maintained washroom during the visit. A clean and well-maintained washroom shows a firm's commitment to operational excellence and customer care. It's not just about hygiene, it's about demonstrating respect for your customers and people that enter your building. People are subconsciously evaluating a business based on their entire experience of it, including using their washrooms. By creating a positive experience for consumers, companies can foster loyalty. You get it wrong, and the negative perceptions can last for a lifetime. It's not surprising cost is often a key consideration when it comes to specifying commercial products. However, true cost reaches far beyond the initial purchase price. So when you select fixtures for a space, it pays for specifiers, architects, designers, and contractors to consider the total cost of ownership or the lifetime cost of a product to make the most informed decision. Anything purchasing quantities such as faucets and fixtures are viable candidates for cost of ownership consideration. To create well-functioning buildings and also be efficient for those who own them, decision makers must weigh lifetime value when making these purchases. So the total cost of ownership is especially important when choosing plumbing fixtures, as these products are used multiple times a day. When it comes to plumbing, all costs, direct and indirect, incurred throughout the life of the product should be considered, including durability, reliability, the ease of installation, maintenance, so not just the repair parts, how expensive they are, but how easy it is to get that replacement installed, the frequency of that replacement, product efficiency, and of course, sustainability as well. So now let's take a brief look at industry standards, one of the most important steps in your journey to selecting the right products for your job. Throughout North America, we typically enter a commercial building without concern for our safety or well-being. We expect that the design and construction are safe and sound. Because of the existence of building codes and standards, which are a comprehensive set of interconnected regulations designed to govern new construction, renovations, remodels, and repairs, we're right to expect that our homes and public facilities are safe. While these codes and standards have several objectives, their primary goal is to protect public health, safety, and well-being as it relates to the construction and occupancy of buildings. In order to sell products, manufacturers must meet the laws and regulations where they're being offered to sell and install. Some governing bodies that you're likely to be aware of include the standard development organizations. So these are the ones who author the performance standards that could be adopted into codes or regulations. So these are ASME, CSA, IATMO, NSF, UL, ASSE, and the like. Then you also have SDO accreditors. These are the organizations that accredit the standard development organizations. They make sure they oversee the standards and conformity assessments at a national level, and these would be the types or the likes of ANSI and SCC. The law is the plumbing code adopted by a province or state and city bylaws. To simplify the code, it usually references several standards like the harmonized ASME 112, A112, or the CSA B125, which is the plumbing supply fittings standard. Because the standards are referenced in the code, they actually become part of the law. All right, so one way of looking at the difference between codes and standards is that a code tells you what you need to do, and a standard tells you how to do it. A code may say that a building must have tempered water. The standard will spell out what kind of system it has to use and how it must work. These are just some of the regulations, industry standards, and codes that affect plumbing products in commercial buildings. So over on the left side, you have provincial, state, and federal regulations from, say, the Department of Energy, all the way down to more recently PFAS regulations. So these are um, coming into play right now and will probably be large talking points in the industry in the next few years. Then you have industry standards. So these could be ASME standards, CSA, EPA WaterSense, all the way down to electrical and how that has to do with plumbing. And then building and plumbing codes, these could be IPC, UPC, NPC, or Cal Green. Depending on the type of project rather, not all codes and standards can be equal, especially in the case of a healthcare facility. For example, some local jurisdictions have made it a requirement to be WaterSense compliant, and this is a requirement that I'll touch on for just a second here. WaterSense is a stamp that can be added to your product that tells you that it's already been certified to be water efficient. However, these requirements may be in direct opposition to infection control requirements in hospitals, for example. So meeting codes and standards require early and open communication channels between the project team, the owner, and the authority having jurisdiction. This is an AHJ. This is an organization, agency, or individual responsible for enforcing codes, standards, and regulations related to building construction, fire prevention, life safety, and it's best to get a hold of them right at the start of the project. It's critical to find out which standards and design guides need to be applied and ensure a complete understanding of expectations. Then there's product certification. So like I touched on with WaterSense. This needs to be visible on the plumbing products that you select for installation. So whether it's a certification by CSA, IATMO, or WaterSense, or one of the other agencies, this logo is usually required to be either on the product or the packaging to indicate that it has been tested and meets those requirements. They're proprietary symbols, so they can't just be added to anything. And adding that symbol is only permitted once the third-party certification is completed and provides independent, objective evidence that the product meets the performance and regulatory requirements. Now let's talk a little bit about the unique aspects of commercial plumbing spaces.
Just one question on the codes and standards before we go too far along.
Mhm.
The CSA and WaterSense IATMO, what's the regularity of updating for that from a manufacturer sense? Is that an annual, you have to go get it updated? Is it, whenever you make a change to the faucet or other product?
Yeah, well, with the limited time that we have here, I'll go high level, but certainly reach out if anybody has any questions on a deeper level. Typically, CSA WaterSense and IATMO certification will be a one-time deal. So it's usually done when a product combination is made. So you may have a product that's offered with 6 different flow rates. Um, if 2 of those meet WaterSense, then those products with that specific flow rate will have the WaterSense applied. And as long as you don't make any changes with the product as a manufacturer going forward, it doesn't need to be recertified. However, there's a caveat. CSA, WaterSense, and IATMO can do random testing and request product at any time to continue using that logo. So in many cases, for example, CSA and UL and other authorities will have random visits to facilities to watch the manufacturing process. They'll take samples and they'll run their own testing to ensure that they still meet the requirements and have the same results that they had at the time of listing.
Interesting. Perfect. Thanks.
No problem. So, commercial plumbing considerations. So, unlike residential properties, we need to consider the sheer volume when we're thinking about commercial plumbing. Whether it's a facility where hundreds of visitors come through the doors every day, or an office that's dedicated to a specific task, such as a laboratory, the plumbing practices are going to be different. It's important to have clarity around what is and what is not important in the room you're specifying for. Charting out need to haves and nice to haves is a great starting point when you're selecting your products to make sure that the functionality will meet your project goals. To get into all the intricacies of commercial plumbing will require a week-long course, probably. However, at a base level, almost every commercial building has a public restroom, which is a great place to discuss when understanding the basic nature of commercial plumbing. So that's where we're going to focus and use as an example. Ideally, the placement and selection of bathroom plumbing fixtures should make a public bathroom layout comfortable, convenient, and accessible for those who use it and for those who maintain it as well. The piping system should provide ample incoming hot and cold water to serve the fixtures. And if the developer is trying to achieve LEED, which is LEED, it stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. If they're trying to achieve one of those ratings, they also need to have water and energy conservation in mind. Since COVID, expectations for sanitation and facilities are at an all-time high. Customers are increasingly looking for a positive restroom experience as well. Functional components of hygiene, cleanability, conservation of resources, durability remain primary concerns, tempered by the innate need to be surrounded by aesthetically pleasing design. So this is an example of a plumbing layout for a public bathroom. So you'd have cold water that enters from the main supply line and hot water that's delivered from the hot water heater. The drain pipes are connected to vent piping and each fixture has a trap. So a lot of this will be similar to residential applications as well. And although it's not called out on the diagram, all of the toilets and urinals also have built-in traps, which are sometimes visible from the outside. Water that drains from the sinks through the trap beneath the fixture, then down a waste line until it reaches a larger diameter pipe, which is known as a soil stack. The waste pipe from the toilet also connects to the soil stack and to the bathroom plumbing system's vent lines as well. So in the next section of the course, we're going to take a closer look at the relationship between the faucet and the fixture and how they work together to meet various commercial project goals. So what characteristics do you think makes a commercial plumbing product commercial? So typically, these products are going to have heavier construction, so the faucet might have thicker walls. Designed for universal use, so some level of accessibility built in. There's thought put into how and with what it will be cleaned. So typically, smoother surfaces, less sharp edges, or corners where dirt can accumulate and is harder to take out. Harsher chemicals are used, so they're usually built with tougher resistance to harsh chemicals. They're usually tested to perform to higher levels of physical stress. They might have a larger anti-rotation pin, for example. They're flexible to a changing environment. So an example of that is a flush valve that has adjustability to accommodate changes in water pressure throughout the building. There's thought put into how to reduce installation time and effort. For example, a pre-plumbed mixing valve assembly might save 20, 30 minutes on an installation. There's thought put into how easy the product will be for facility staff to maintain, so the repairs and maintenance. And then there's thought put into the variety of faucet flow rates, ranging usually from something as low as 0.35 gallons per minute to 2.2. In all plumbing situations, the faucet and fixture work as a system. It's important that you understand the unique aspects of the vast assortment you can specify from rather, to ensure the two work well together to meet your project's desired outcome. To do that, it's a good idea to have a list of what you need the products to accomplish for your project and a good understanding of the functions available today in both faucets and fixtures. This way, you can ensure that you'll meet your project goals. Ask yourself, what's paramount for this job? Is it hygiene? Is it vandal resistance? Is it cost? Is there a particular flow or temperature that's required? Being clear on your objectives makes product selection a much easier task. So let's begin with a look at what's important to the various segments of commercial business and the functionality of faucets. What's important for your project is going to depend on the segment of construction or renovation you're working on. Although there are a lot of similarities, there are also a lot of differences that need to be understood. So, as an example, let's take hospitality, which has a high aesthetic focus. They might not have a whole lot of features, so they might not have adjustability on temperature or something like that. Typically, a touch-free product versus healthcare. It's going to be very hygiene focused. It's not going to be aesthetic focus. And it's usually more extensive feature set as well. Then you have schools where vandal resistance is a big play. Interestingly, kids like to, try to break things, tear them apart. So this is where you're going to be looking for a highly vandal resistant product. So let's start by looking at faucets and sinks. First and foremost, the faucet and sink need to be thought of as a system. They need to work in unison. What do you think the goals of the system are? It's accessibility, so the ability for everyone to use the wash station, hygiene, reduce the bacteria transport, backsplash, that kind of thing. Water savings where possible, of course. Drain line waste transport, so how's the wastewater going to drain through the lines? Cleanability, as we talked about, to make sure that it's easy to clean and can stand up to the products, and serviceability. So how are we going to maintain this? One of the biggest questions when selecting faucets, whether for bathroom or kitchen, toilet, or even shower for your project, is whether you want to go manual or touchless or electronic. As the product specifier, you're likely responsible or you're part of a team that's making this decision. Questions to ask yourself. Which type will keep your customer safer? Which one's easier to use? Which one produces the required water temperature? Which one saves water? Which one fits the budget? And other considerations related specific to the project that aren't listed here. The answers to these questions will give you your ultimate answer. If you go the manual route, you'll want to consider whether to go with a single handle or a two handle product. And then the ADA requires that a person must be able to turn on a faucet without twisting or straining the wrist and using less than 5 pounds of force. The ability to activate the water flow easily with only one hand makes it simpler for people with physical limitations to turn on the water. The user shouldn't have to grip or pinch the handle with force in order for water to flow. It needs to be able to be operated with a closed fist as well. Manual faucets also have different types of valve systems. So the first one here is a compression valve. This is the oldest type of valve. And this is very simple. There's a thread, and as the handle turns, it brings down it brings down an internal stem that rests on a stop, and that compression, when it makes full contact, is actually what's closing your valve. And of course, turning it the other way around opens it. Then you have ball valves. So these are typically washerless ball valves are a pivoting metal or plastic ball that's used to regulate the amount of incoming water. So typically it'll have three holes in the ball. Two will be incoming, one will be outgoing water to the faucet spout. And depending on the position, those balls will align up so you can change the amount of hot and cold water entering and exiting through the outlet. You also have ceramic disc cartridges. So these are cartridges that have two ceramic discs that slide over one another to control the water temperature and the amount of water. They're extremely durable, and the shearing motion of these virtually flat discs offers precise flow control. These valves require lubrication once in a while to ensure handle operation is smooth. A diamond valve also includes two ceramic discs, but one of the discs has diamond embedded surface. The diamond embedded disc constantly polishes the other disc to help provide smooth handle operation. If you decide to go with electronic faucets in your project, there are three sensing types that are available for consideration. The first is infrared, which emits invisible light using an LED to sense objects within its surroundings. Once something gets close to the sensor, the lights bounce back to the receiver, and that triggers the solenoid to activate. It can, however, be impacted by dark clothing or rough and dry textures, as these absorb light and the sensor may not activate the solenoid. Optics is an iteration of infrared technology, a little bit more advanced, and it's a sensing technology that calculates the distance of a object placed in front of it. It only activates when the object is placed within a distance that's preset. It can fairly accurately sense the user's distance regardless of external factors such as light reflection. And then the last one that we have is capacitance-based sensing technology, which works by emitting an electrical field around the object. Any target that disrupts this field activates the sensor. This typically offers greater precision because it's not affected by debris, dirt, reflections, clothing color, texture, because it's actually not a visual sensor. When going with electronic faucets, you may also have an opportunity to select the type of power source that you prefer. Things to consider are, is there a power supply? Will the sink have a cabinet or enclosure that can hide or protect the power box? What's the anticipated volume of use? Is the end user prone to vandalism? Is there opportunity to build a chase? So a chase is basically a vertical space in a wall that provides an area for pipes or wires to run through. These are usually placed in a strategic way so that cables can be gathered and run together. And it's basically installed from a single open space to another. So it'll be like leading to a space in the wall behind. You also want to decide if you want to be hardwired battery or battery with, hardwire with a battery backup. If it's a new construction project, you'll have more flexibility on this decision than a quick renovation where you don't want to move water or electrical supply lines. In making this decision, you'll want to consider the project budget, the sustainability goals, and facility maintenance resources. So starting with battery. Battery is best for locations that don't have outlets or power nearby. And they're relatively easy to install and recommended for use in low traffic applications. You also have solar energy harvesting with battery. This reduces battery replacement and costs. It transforms all light types, both natural and artificial, to charge a capacitor within the faucet so the battery is only used when the solar power is depleted. Turbine energy harvesting, similar to solar, the turbine is activated when the water opens. So when it flushes or in the faucet, when you're running the faucet, it's actually spinning a turbine and that's generating a little bit of power to help assist charging the capacitor and assist with the next operation. And then hardwire with battery backup. So a power outlet or wiring is required in this case. This option greatly reduces battery replacement and will be more cost effective in terms of energy usage. Depending on the manufacturer, this power option allows for multiple faucets to be daisy chained or ganged together in close proximity. So this is what a daisy chain or ganging looks like. Basically, you have the power coming into one faucet, and then it is installed usually in parallel or using a special adapter so that only one power source is required for up to, say, 5, 6, 7 faucets, depending on the manufacturer. Now, not all manufacturers offer this capability, so you do need to check ahead to understand what's available and whether that can be chained together. You also need to consider above deck and below deck. So above deck is great because all of the components are above the deck and they can be serviced without having to go under the sink deck. Most faucets with larger and wider spout designs have above deck components. Below deck is where most of the components are located under the sink. So your electronics might be located in a box mounted under the sink or in a recessed cabinet. These components can also be mounted in chases or in walls, although they're harder to get into, but they do provide higher vandal resistance. One other thing is when you do have below deck, sleeker designs are available, right? So because you're not trying to package electronics and batteries and other things into the faucet itself, you can have nicer, more aesthetic designs. Temperature limiting valves. So temperature limiting valves mix hot and cold water in undersink applications to minimize the risk of scalding. They're incorporated into the system when predetermined maximum temperature is a must. So ASSE 1070 is a standard for mixing valves to limit hot water temperatures to 120 degrees. These valves are thermostatic mixing valves intended for use near the point of use, so close to the faucets themselves. Common applications include limiting temperatures at sinks and shampoo bowls, delivering tempered water to lavatories with or without infrared or metering faucets, and limiting hot water temperature to a specific site of faucets and fixtures. Alternatively, the ASSE 1069 valve delivers up to 120-degree tempered water to serve showers in places such as prisons, schools, health clubs, and similar shower rooms that utilize a push-button metering system in a single temperature shower system. These valves are available from various manufacturers as point of use or supplying a bank of faucets. So they can be similar to the power options. You can have one mixing valve box service multiple faucets as well. Now to water flow, which is determined by the aerator that you specify. Choosing the right aerator is an easy step in the fight for water savings. They come in a variety of flow rates that each have their own unique characteristics and need to be understood in order to get the correct flow and functionality. Depending on your project, there may be a certain criteria that's needed with respect to flow rate. For example, UPC and IPC code for commercial faucets in public locations throughout North America requires a flow rate of 0.5 gallons per minute. Now, there are exceptions to this code, and like we talked about, sometimes they will clash with others, so it's important to have that authority having jurisdiction. For LEED certified facilities, 0.35 gallons per minute is required to meet LEED 4.0 and 4.1 guidelines. For healthcare applications, more water flow is needed to meet surgical scrub requirements, and the aerated spray can't be used. Although aerated is the most popular type used elsewhere because it makes streams feel stronger by mixing it with air, it can't be used in healthcare applications because introducing air into the faucet stream can potentially introduce airborne pathogens into the water. The type of aerator can help you also meet your goals in other areas. So the range of spray patterns and flow rates is vast, as you can see on the example chart here. Um, the other one I wanted to point out is the spray aeration. This produces a shower-like pattern when dispensing water. Needle spray aerators are the only choice when you're working with ultra low flow. So if you're going with a 0.35 or a 0.5 gallons per minute, there just isn't enough flow for aerated or laminar outlets to create a visually appealing flow. In that case, you might be forced to choose a spray pattern, which restricts flow and increases velocity of the water so that it produces a nice pattern. Commercial sinks are typically either ceramic, stainless steel, or made of solid surface material. The most standard shapes are oval, round, square, and rectangular. Oval is the standard shape because it takes up less counter space while still being wide enough to provide the space you need to wash up properly. They're also easy to clean because there are no sharp corners. And likewise, the round is also easy to clean, but it's typically used where you have even less counter space, so it might be used in a very tight area. The square or rectangular, so with jobs with an abundance of counter space, for example, a restaurant bathroom or a theater bathroom, and you're looking to class up the joint a bit, a rectangular or square basin is a popular choice. It's different from those standard oval basins and adds a modern feel while still offering plenty of room to clean your hands. Of course, like a round basin, a square basin doesn't require too much space versus the rectangular, which will need a little bit more space. So when you're selecting a sink for public bathrooms, consider both functionality and aesthetics. The main options to consider include the following. So for lavatory sinks, they can be drop-in. They all, of course, come in various sizes. But drop-in sinks are placed on a countertop surface and can be made of materials like ceramic or porcelain or even stainless steel. Then you have undermount sinks, which are mounted to the counter from underneath, so there's no lip protruding on the counter surface. So it actually gives you a little bit more counter surface and is more in vogue today in terms of popularity. And then there are wall-mounted sinks. These space-saving sinks range from, small to large as well, and they're directly attached to the wall and leave the floor area clear underneath. And lastly, there are corner sinks. So if you're in a particularly tight space, a corner sink fits snugly into corners and maximizes available space elsewhere in the room. There are also trough sinks. So trough sinks are long, narrow basins that can accommodate multiple users simultaneously. They're ideal for high traffic areas like public restrooms. If you are using a trough sink, it's important to look at ADA compliant options to make sure that you meet accessibility requirements. And then, of course, if none of these meet your needs, some manufacturers also offer customizable sinks. For high volume areas, it's best to choose durable materials, easy to clean surfaces, and always keep accessibility in mind. Whether you opt for a classic design or a modern look, prioritize functionality and hygiene for a positive restroom experience. Specifiers like undermount models because they're flush with the countertop surface, and undermount bowls are easy to clean the rim sinks and they don't need caulking on the countertop, which can wear away over time, look unappealing, and require owner maintenance. Although stainless steel construction is the mainstay of healthcare and food service applications for sanitary reasons, solid surface basins or porcelain bowls are preferable for public restrooms because they hold up to constant use and they don't scratch as easily as stainless steel.
Sorry, just before we go too far on there, because this question does kind of tie into, sink selection, where the space beneath the lav does kind of play in. One of the questions coming in was, the difference between integrated mixing valves integrated into the faucets and your separate point of use mixing valve that is, underneath or, within the counter of the lav, and whether or not there's a best practice for particular applications. I know for wall hung, when you're looking at like a wall hung versus counter mount, that can very much affect whether or not you're looking for an integrated mixing valve or the separate mixing valve. If you don't have
That
the space for it, then certainly looking for an integrated mixing valve is a great option.
That's a great question, and you answered that perfectly. It's going to depend on a number of factors. For something like a wall mount or where you don't have anything underneath, your only option might be a mixing valve in the faucet or a recessed box. So that picture that we had of an example of a recessed box, that will be something that you can use as well, where you don't want something exposed. Point of use mixing valves are usually for a single faucet, and then for larger banks, it will usually be either the recessed box or a larger mixing valve that can be hidden away under deck.
I guess one other point I would put out there is like the maintenance that you may be expecting due to either high traffic, high volume. Like you're mentioning, trough sinks, great for high
Yeah,
volume applications. That's
yes,
also a situation where you may be, really can go both ways. It can be easier to service an above deck mixing faucet, but it can also need more maintenance because it's got some additional parts in there. So
that's right.
it really
Yeah.
comes down to a lot of your application discussions. Cost is always a factor, and then your use case. So lots of
Yeah,
different
it comes
factors.
back
I don't think there's one right answer.
correct. It comes back to making sure that you design the whole system holistically, taking into all factors. So, how much space do I have? What is the aesthetic appeal I'm going for? What is my priority? Is it hygiene? Is it a good experience? Is it cleanability, cost? All of these things are going to drive. Um, and actually, one other thing that I need to point out is oftentimes you're also limited if you're doing a renovation. If it's not a new build, you're also limited by where your supply lines and power lines are. So, a full holistic review of all of your requirements as well as limitations is what's going to drive that answer.
Yeah, and last point, just as you were bringing up the your building requirements, pressure differentiation between your hot and cold can very much affect the use of the valve as well. And
Yes.
a standalone valve is going to handle that a little bit better than some of the integrated mixing valves. So
Absolutely.
those are, amount of pressure that you have to factor in your pressure drop across the valve. So lots of different factors. That's why we have all the options. One other question came in, and this may be for probably healthcare where maintenance is really a concern. Is there a best option, best practice when it comes to, the level of cleaning? They asked specifically about self-cleaning, but I would imagine that they're talking about like maintenance schedules and things like that.
So self-cleaning, I'm not quite understanding if we can get more details on what the question there is. But for healthcare specifically, one of the things that drives healthcare applications are the standards, right? And there are certain standards, and we need to know what the application is. So I'll give you an example. One of the requirements in certain applications is a high temperature flush for 30 minutes to remove water and kill bacteria or Legionella, anything that might have built up in the pipes or the fixtures. In this case, you're going to need a mixing valve that you can override and have hot water run through while being able to return to a normal operation. So the specific application that you have, that is going to drive what you're going to specify for that specific, maybe not even project, but that specific faucet on that project.
Gotcha. We did have some more information come up. Um, they're looking at some of the large volume retail applications, malls, etc. So you're dealing
Mhm.
with high traffic, high volume, and generally ultra low flow because most of them are going lead, and you're looking generally at a large trough sink, most likely.
Right.
So these were applications where the sink's really just not draining well. Um, there's debris left behind. It's just not designed to drain well.
Yeah, so in that case, that would be something that would be driven by the maintenance schedule, by the management of the facilities. That's something that can also be driven by using something that still meets the lead criteria. So 0.35 is lead 4.0 and 4.1, but in certain cases, you do get points for using zero point 0.5, and an aerated outlet might help sort of move more water in that case.
Perfect. Thank you.
So one of the key design goals of any sink and faucet system is to get water down the drain with as little splashing as possible. So planning for the placement of the faucet relative to the drain will help prevent contaminated water from splashing. In addition, there needs to be enough room between the water supply and back of sink to ensure hands fit comfortably into the space for proper hand washing. Don't assume that any faucet's going to work with any sink. Not all sinks and faucets are compatible. Always get a copy of the manufacturer's specification sheet, both for the faucet and the sink, complete with diagrams and dimensions for both, and make sure that they're compatible. Find out the length and or reach of your preferred faucet spout. It's called a projection. And the goal is to have the water fall in the center of the drain to reduce splashback, except when stated otherwise in an applicable standard or regulation. So in healthcare, for example, that might not be the case. It's also important to make sure that the sink and faucet can be placed in the available space and not interfere with each other's functions. When selecting a sink drain for public spaces, it's important that you select some form of grid so that paper and other items don't slip down the sink. In settings particularly concerned with hygiene, hooded strainers that reduce splashback are also available. There are even automatic faucets with programmable flushes to ensure that drains are adequately rinsed to remove foul-smelling liquids and soap buildup. The same programmable flushes can also be used to clear stagnant water from supply lines at irregular intervals. So this goes back to that. If you are using an electronic faucet, they can be programmed to flush, say, 10 seconds per hour or for a minute every 24 hours to make sure that the sink is getting cleaned out all the way. So let's talk about toilets and flush valves. So there's a reason that commercial bathrooms don't need to have plungers available in every stall. It's because when the correct flushing and toilet system is selected, there's little concern that the bowl won't be cleared. But to ensure this, the toilet and flush valve need to be thought of as a system. Let's face it, there's nothing worse than needing to use a water closet only to have it not working. So what do we think the goals of the system are? Accessibility, flushability, drain line waste transport, waste extraction, flush volume, hygiene to reduce toilet bowl plume, cleanability, serviceability, and yeah, serviceability. A flush valve uses water pressure directly from the water line connecting to it to flush the water closet. Because of that, flush valves are typically mainly selected for commercial facilities where multiple fixtures would be activating simultaneously. Each of the flush valves has minimum incoming pressure requirements based on the manufacturer's specification, which you need to take into account when designing the water system for the facility. One of the major benefits of this system in a commercial building is that unlike a residential toilet, the user doesn't have to wait for the tank to fill up before flushing. So that reduces the refill time. Also, flush valves mix air and water to achieve more pressure while flushing, so they can provide a cleaner water closet bowl. Flush valves can also be categorized by the installation location, so they're exposed or concealed. Like the name suggests, the entire assembly of a concealed flush valve is concealed, with only the flushometer button and sensor exposed. Some owners may prefer this due to the aesthetic reasons, while some facilities such as behavioral and healthcare may request concealed flush valves to prevent self-harm or vandalism. So commercial toilets and urinals are typically ceramic, but in some institutional jobs, they may be stainless steel. So as an example, in a prison facility. And depending on the application, the toilets can also be mounted in different ways. The first one there, you have a floor mount, which, as you can expect, is mounted to the floor. They can come in one piece or two piece. And the ones with the bowl at the back typically are used in low volume applications, such as multifamily or small offices. A wall hung is attached to the wall, and that includes urinals as well. Wall mount toilets store the tank within the wall, so they take up less space and are easier to clean around. Wall mount toilets are also very to clean and maintain. There are two types of bowls, round and elongated. Typically, elongated is more comfortable than round bowls, but you need to consider the space that you have. Most building codes require that there be at least 15 inches from any side to the bowl to the bowl of the toilet. And you should keep any fixtures 32 inches away from the center of the toilet so that there should be at least 24 inches of space in front of the toilet. Given these requirements, sometimes the round bowl makes more sense. And finally, we're going into showers, the last section. Let's talk showers. So the goals of the system for showers are accessibility, hygiene, so reducing bacteria transport, keeping it inside the shower, privacy, taking personal comfort into consideration, water savings, drain line waste transport, cleanability, and serviceability. We could have just an hour looking at all the combinations and permutations of shower options available for plumbing applications, but at a base level, when looking at today's commercial systems, it's simple to see that the shower is no longer just a shower. There are versatile shower solutions for virtually every priority and every application. For example, guests at an upscale hotel spa have different expectations for showers than high school students or medical staff tending to a patient's needs. Each of these make it a vastly different requirement. So let's talk about some of the products. So as a starting point, a shower valve rough is installed behind the wall to house the valve cartridge for the fixture. The valve cartridge can come with the rough or the shower trim and is inserted into the rough. So the rough, it's called a rough because it goes into the rough-in phase of the job. And it's usually before any of the shower walls are put up or anything is attached in terms of the trim. The hot and cold water supply lines come together at the rough where the water gets mixed by the valve cartridge to the selected temperature before it's piped to the shower head or tub spout. One thing to note is valve roughs, cartridges, and trims typically are not interchangeable between manufacturers. So if you have one manufacturer's rough-in, typically you won't be able to install a different manufacturer's cartridge or trim. So rough-ins are made from either forged or cast brass. Forged ensures material integrity throughout the structure and has better performance at higher temperatures and higher pressures because of the thermal and metallurgical process that it goes through in development. Cast or stamped brass is lighter and typically less expensive than forged brass, but can have minor surface imperfections. So you will typically see cast for lower duty applications and forged for higher heavy applications. So some manufacturers provide all-in-one solution where the rough-in only works with a specific shower valve, whether it's thermostatic or pressure balance. However, some plumbing manufacturers today also offer universal rough-ins that can work with a variety of their cartridges. This allows for flexibility to change what kind of cartridge is used and the trims, so you can start the project, put the rough-in in, and even if you haven't decided if you want a thermostatic valve or not, or which type of trim you want, you can decide that down the road, so that adds a little bit of flexibility. And depending on the manufacturer, valve rough may include special features to simplify the installation. So for example, a mounting bracket provides secure placement, so it's not dangling around in the wall. Pressure test cap allows for air or water testing before the valve cartridge is installed. So this goes back to the rough-in is going at a stage where you haven't put up the walls yet, so that is the perfect time to test for water leaks. A plaster guard helps with placement and installation on a shower wall, so that just helps line up the placement. And the type of connection to the rough can vary to accommodate different piping outlet options, such as PEX or copper.
One question there, just on the shower valves and the rough-in.
Mhm.
Do some of these valves fit within like a 4-inch stud wall?
Yes, typically. Yep. They are usually very small. Yep. So there are different types of tub and shower valve cartridges. So pressure balanced and thermostatic. Pressure balance valve cartridges automatically adjust the flow of hot and cold water exiting the valve to maintain a consistent outlet temperature, despite fluctuations in hot and cold water supply pressure. So some manufacturers use a spool and sleeve technology inside the cartridges, and others use a diaphragm mechanism. What this basically ensures is that if somebody flushes the toilet, it doesn't suddenly become super hot scalding water. A pressure balance with volume and separate temperature control is also available. A thermostatic valve cartridge works like a thermostat to control the temperature of the water. It uses a wax and spring configuration to measure and monitor the temperature of the water, and it automatically adjusts the hot and cold water mix to maintain a more precise water temperature. Although they work differently, both pressure balanced and thermostatic valve cartridges maintain a consistent outlet temperature to ensure a comfortable showering experience. Just as with faucets, showers in the commercial field come both in manual and electronic options, and they can be hardwired or battery powered. They can be activated by a handle, or they can be activated by the push of a button. Depending on the goal for the project, there's going to be a solution for your scenario. The shower heads and hand showers selected for a commercial space can go from luxurious to simply functional. Much like the aerator in the faucet, the shower head and hand shower selections will allow you to to also control the gallons per minute or the water flow of the head. This is where you can put thought into how efficient you need your project to be. The EPA and some manufacturers offer water savings calculators on the websites, which can help you determine the savings achieved by using different products. In addition, determining if and what sort of grab bar the space may need is also paramount to increasing the safety in the showering space. In addition, selecting the correct size drain is paramount. First and foremost, you need to ensure the drain size will accommodate the volume of water expected based on the flow of the shower head and or hand shower. And much like the sink drain in many applications, you will want to select a gridded drain so that no unwanted items clog the drain. Finally, also worth mentioning that the days of utilitarian commercial faucet design and having to select function over form are becoming a thing of the past. Manufacturers have started to change their designs to be more aesthetic as well as functional. So aesthetics and function don't have to be separate entities. You can have both in a lot of more recent products. So that concludes our course. So let's review some of the highlights. So it's essential that products are selected as part of a continuous system that we're all work in harmony to meet the project goals. The project should be thought through with goals and the true cost in mind. End user safety should be considered #1 priority. Product selected should meet all industry standards to ensure there are no surprises when inspectors come to review your work. And all current local, provincial, state, and national building or facilities and plumbing standards and codes need to be considered carefully when products are being specified. This concludes the Residential Plumbing 101 continuing education course. Thank you for participating. Please contact me directly if you have any questions related to the material. And we also have a number of other courses available should you be interested in participating. I'll pass it back to you, Zach.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I recognize we're running a little short on time, but that was a lot of great information. So like usual, we tend to run long when there's good information being presented. I did want to take a couple of minutes. We had a question come in about, the spec tool in the US versus Canada. It is the same spec tool, atsspec.com. And you can log in. Again, this is free for engineers, architects, interior designers, design build contractors. Just log in or sign up here in the top right. And there are some differences across the border. There's also differences from state to state because there's different building codes that apply to California versus Texas versus Washington versus New York. So all the locational regional data is built into what we call our rule engine, which helps recommend appropriate barrier-free product or appropriate code-compliant product based on your state or province. We were also asked about the recorded webinars. Those are available here under the event directory, ats.com, and then go to event directory, webinar recordings. Once you're logged in, you'll come to your dashboard here. You'll see that we do have our CEUs and our webinars highlighted up at the top. You have the ability to view your firm's engagement. If you have multiple offices across different states or different cities, you can all work on and share projects as a firm. And from there, you can either update your masters, create new projects, as well as what we call quick specs. These are just various degrees of folders with different levels of the rule engine applied. So the quick spec is as it sounds. There's no location, no application. It's just a title and then an open catalog, which is great if you know exactly what you're looking for. A project is where you're going to have to add your location information. You're going to select your application. And just like Ranveer covered in the discussion today, that application is going to start recommending products that are most appropriate. Some applications have more vandal concerns. Some applications have more aesthetic concerns. Those can all be built in. Lastly, we talked about the masters. I even mentioned a story just as we were kind of waiting to get started, where an engineering firm, they had a project they built 2 years ago. They hadn't updated it. The spec sat there kind of dormant, and then a product went discontinued. That happens all the time. One of the things that we can do is build either your chains, your common applications, or even just your approved internal standards as what we call a master on the system. The masters are constantly updated. So if Delta goes and changes the model number of their exposed flush valve, they change it 2 years from now, you are going to get notified, hey, this product has been discontinued, or hey, there's been a change to this product's model name and number. We recommend including this verbiage or re-downloading your spec. and that is for all current projects and masters. Additionally, masters have this great feature where you can actually drag and drop from right from your masters. So we have two different types of masters on the spec tool. By hitting this drawing here, this little button here, you can go to the add drawings from masters and templates. You are going to have access to your masters as well as the ATS templates, which is basically our masters. And from there, you can simply drag and drop from an approved application into the new project. Now, this feature is also available on the Delta Faucet Spec Select program. You may have noticed that the last year or so, Delta's Spec Select program was updated. I think it's a great new update because guess what? It's very similar. In fact, it is the ATS spec tool, just branded only with your Delta product. So if you are looking for a specific product, maybe if you're a Canadian engineer, you recognize that we have specific models in Canada and different manufacturers in the US. You can access all of them regardless of where you are on the Delta Faucet spec tool. So if you go to commercial, resources, spec select, they have a wonderful video that will explain everything again. And then you should be pretty familiar with what we just talked about here. So again, you have the same access to Quick Specs Project Masters, and then they have their own templates available here as well. So great thing is that your projects share back and forth. So again, that same mechanic shop that I opened up here, I can either hit this add drawing button and go to create new drawing, and we can select, individually by categories. So we talked about flush valves. I saw a question come in there about, concealed versus exposed flush valves. So we can use our installation type here. We can filter this down to our concealed flush valves. We can sort by flush valve type where, we're looking for a toilets flush valve. We can go down to water consumption. Let's say we're looking for a 128. Filter that down. Do we have any additional options? And then we can refine our selection to meet exactly what we need. So again, we're looking for a concealed backsplash toilet. We're looking for a 12 by 12 box. Let's say that we have, if there's no pipe chase, you're going to want a valve box that can be accessed from the front. So you're going to look for a 12 by 12 or a 12 by 18 box. If you have a concealed pipe chase like we talked about in the presentation, you can go with a nicer looking 4 by 4 minimalistic view. And you can see as we select each of these options, our model number is updating, our list price is updating. So that's the difference between just using the manufacturer's spec sheet, which is also available in the system. So you can use, the manufacturer's spec sheet here and kind of copy and paste and take what information you feel you might need out of this. Or you can go through, configure your selection, get exactly what you want, hit add product, and it's complete. So we can either add another drawing, which would take us back to the category selection page. We can go back to our project. And I talked about masters and templates before. I'll show you them in action. If we go into our templates, you can see Delta's already they've been working with these brands. These are the approved products for these specific brands. So if you're doing a series of, I've got Zach's Mechanic Shop here, we could drag and drop and say, yes, I want all these products. If we're doing a supermarket spec, again, these are the approved products that Delta's worked with the owner group on. We could select all these drawings, drag and drop over. And now I know that I've got an approved selection that's going to be updated and accurate. It's going to meet everything that my owner group has requested. And I could simply go through and download either an individual file or download all the files. And it's going to have this generate spec docs button where you can download your submittals in PDF, a brochure format with a great larger image, higher end aesthetics, just the short details, a schedule in Excel that you can use to pop right directly into your CAD system. We have 3 different versions of written specs. So this is taking that same kernel of data and just representing it different ways. You can have a CSI 3-part spec, which matches your master spec formatting. You can have the ATS long spec which is a detailed ATS specific formatting, or short spec, which is going to be very similar to some of your performance-based specs. You can have the manufacturer spec package that has all of the manufacturer pages or the Revit file for everything that's in your project. Then you can download as many or whichever specific files match your firm's go-to-market for your spec. We are seeing more often people are putting, a PDF package on the drawings and a generic written spec. We've got a format for you there. If you are putting a schedule on your drawings and a detailed written spec, we can assist you there. If you are doing a long, detailed 3-part spec, we have a format that's, all of these are, again, open and editable, copy and download, or copy and paste directly into your written specs. And all of these are going to have the updated model name and number. So you are getting exactly what you are selecting every single time. So I'll just pop a couple of these open here. So again, everything's nice, clean, concise, exactly what you're looking for. This is, again, just one of the formats. Copy and paste it directly into your written specs. Or if you're putting something onto the drawings, you can do so here as well. So again, compared to a generic manufacturer's written spec where you are not getting exactly what you selected, this is going to very clearly indicate to your contractor, to your wholesaler, the options that you've requested and assist them in following along. So that's